This is Sky High Viral. What you're about to hear is drawn from official reports, reliable news sources, and public records. Some details remain under investigation. We'll state what is confirmed and what is not. Iryna Zarutska was a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee who fled her homeland in 2022, escaping the war following Russia's invasion. She had settled in Charlotte, North Carolina, working hard, living quietly, not trying to build peace in a new world. On the night of August 22, 2025, she took the Lynx Blue Line light rail, just another ride home after work. Surveillance video shows she boarded wearing headphones, looking at her phone, unaware of what would happen next. A man named DeCarlos Brown Jr., aged 34 with a history of criminal arrest, was aboard in the same car. Agents say he did not have a ticket. 4 minutes into the ride, Brown allegedly took out a folding knife, unprovoked, and stabbed Zarutska 3 times, including at least once in the neck. She was declared dead at the scene. Brown then exited the train, was arrested on the platform, and is now facing charges of first-degree murder under state law and a federal charge for committing an act causing death on a mass transit system. Authorities say eyewitnesses rushed forward to help, and video footage was released showing the prelude to the attack. Her family has spoken out. They describe Iryna as kind, loving, hardworking, someone who came to America seeking safety, wanting to make a life in spite of everything she had already lived through. They say no family should endure what theirs has. They're calling for justice, for accountability, for safety reforms in transit systems, visible security, oversight of public transit operations. DeCarlos Brown Jr. is not unknown to law enforcement. He has prior arrests, robbery with a dangerous weapon, breaking and entering, larceny, misuse of the 911 system. He reportedly suffers from schizophrenia. In audio released recently from jail, he claimed in his own words that a man-made substance implanted in my body was controlling his actions, that what he did was not truly himself. Mental health experts say schizophrenia can alter perception, cause hallucinations, delusions, disordered thinking. Still, there's no confirmed motive yet beyond the randomness of the attack. The courts have not established whether his mental illness will be a factor in his defense or sentencing. From Charlotte city leaders to federal law enforcement, reactions have been swift. Mayor Vi Lyles described the murder as senseless and tragic, the kind that shakes public confidence in safety in everyday spaces. The Charlotte area transit system has released security footage in response to public demand. Authorities have asked for safety reforms, fair enforcement, more visible security guards, improvements in station monitoring and platform security. Nationally, the case has sparked debates. One question, if the victim had been black and the suspect white, would the media response, the hashtags, the outrage, the appearance of celebrities have been different? Some argue the attention is because Iryna is a refugee, a white girl being attacked by a black man, and that race is being dragged into this narrative heavily. Others see the opposite, that even though the victim is white or perceived as white, many such attacks haven't received as much prominence. People are pointing out parallels with other cases. Jordan Neely, whose case drew protest and coverage, Derek Chauvin, Trayvon Martin. They ask, when the roles are reversed, do we see the same level of activism, social media solidarity, statements from Oprah, Madonna, Hollywood stars?
And we're disgusted. We cannot normalize this pain. And I'm not only speaking to people of color. If you're white, black, brown, or anything in between, I'm sure you feel hopeless by the racism going on in America right now. No more senseless killings of human beings. No more seeing people of color as less than human.
The next time you see an injustice and you turn and pretend that you didn't see it, then you are a part of the problem and not the overall conscious solution. That's it. And we have all got to do in our own way to work toward the systemic dismantling of injustices and racism and the caste system in this country that allows for racism to exist. That is what has to happen.
Or is there bias in what gets amplified? There are also broader global parallels. Iryna fled war in Ukraine, seeking refuge from horrors. She came to the U.S. for safety. This murder raises stark contrasts. A person who escaped violence ends up being a victim of another kind of violence. And that fuels fear not just among immigrants or refugees, but among anyone who uses public transit, who rides trains, who trusts in public space. There are questions that the public demands answered. Was this attack racially motivated? Did the suspect say anything after the killing that points to race or hatred or hate speech? Did police or transit authorities receive warnings or complaints about the suspect before? Were mental health resources or psychiatric interventions available? Did the justice system do enough to mitigate risk given his criminal history? There is also criticism that in some cases, when black victims are harmed, or white victims or immigrant victims, the response is inconsistent. Some cases become national causes with celebs posting, others fade quietly. So voices online are asking, what determines visibility? Is the media biased? Do powerful people pick and choose which tragedies to champion based on race, identity, or politics? For Iryna's family, it's more than justice in court. It's a plea for system change. Transit security, mental health care, criminal justice oversight. They want policies that prevent this from happening again. They want to believe that people fleeing war or seeking a better life are safe. They want to believe that in America, nobody should fear walking home on public transit. When a killing like this happens, the story is never just the crime itself. It becomes a mirror of society's divisions, fears, and priorities. In America, one of the rawest divides is race. And this is where the case of Iryna Zarutska is now colliding with broader fault lines. When a black man dies at the hands of police, America erupts. Streets fill with protests. Social media feeds flood with hashtags, celebrity videos, and corporate pledges. But when a white woman, a refugee, is killed by a black man on public transit, the reaction is quieter, more fragmented. Why? Is it bias? Is it fatigue? Is it the media choosing stories that drive clicks and fuel narratives? Or is it that some lives, in practice, seem to matter more publicly than others, depending on who they are and who their attacker is? Critics point to a double standard. They ask why figures like Oprah, Madonna, Beyoncé, LeBron James, and others who are quick to speak on certain injustices remain silent now. They ask why the tragedy of a Ukrainian woman escaping bombs and tanks, only to be murdered in the supposed safety of America, isn't on every front page, every talk show, every award stage. They ask if the outrage machine only turns on when the victim is black and the suspect white, but not the reverse. Supporters of this view argue that this silence speaks volumes. It shows that outrage has been politicized, that grief itself is filtered through the lens of identity politics. And they worry about the ripple effects. When tragedies aren't acknowledged equally, trust erodes further, divisions deepen, and ordinary people conclude that justice is selective. On the other side, some argue the difference lies not in race, but in politics. They say that organized movements around police violence have decades of history, networks, and fundraising, while random transit stabbings do not. They say the difference is infrastructure, not indifference. But does that explanation satisfy Iryna's grieving family, or the public watching yet another life stolen without warning? And then there are the global parallels. Iryna was Ukrainian. She escaped the chaos of Putin's war. Yet here in America, she met a different kind of violence. And some ask, if this had happened to a Syrian refugee in Germany, or a Palestinian refugee in France, would the global press frame it differently? Would the narrative be stronger if the victim's story could be tied to certain causes that already have global celebrity backing? These are uncomfortable questions, but they cannot be ignored. At its heart, this case is not only about race or politics. It is about the value of life itself, and whether society chooses to weigh tragedies differently depending on the circumstances. That is why people are watching closely, to see whether Iryna Zarutska is remembered as a fleeting headline or as a symbol of the need for fairness in how America treats victims of violence, no matter their color, origin, or cause. Now let's turn to the suspect, DeCarlos Brown Jr., and what his story reveals about deeper cracks in America's system. He had prior arrests, robbery, larceny, misuse of emergency lines. He was known to law enforcement. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, a condition that without treatment can warp perception and judgment. And yet he was free riding a train, armed with a knife capable of sudden violence. This raises hard questions. Should he have been in treatment? Should he have been supervised? Should someone with his record and illness have been able to walk into a train without security present, without intervention? For years, mental health advocates have warned that America fails both patients and the public by underfunding psychiatric care and failing to follow up after arrests. This case is proof of that gap, a gap that cost Iryna her life. There is also the engineering of safety to consider. Public transit is vulnerable. Security cameras can capture crime, but they cannot prevent it. Fair enforcement officers cannot be everywhere, and when budgets are tight, patrols are cut. The result? Passengers trust in a system that cannot guarantee their protection. After Iryna's murder, city leaders in Charlotte promised reforms. But critics point out that reforms often fade as time passes and attention shifts. Will it be different this time? The story also resonates because of timing. America is already fractured over politics, race, gender, and ideology. Each tragedy becomes a test of narrative, and this one exposes the rawest contradiction. A refugee who fled authoritarian violence, only to be killed in the land of the free by a man lost between crime and illness. For her family, it is unbearable irony. For the public, it is another reminder that freedom without safety is fragile. The parallels to Ukraine's war are haunting. In Kyiv, bombs fall indiscriminately, and civilians die not for who they are, but because they are in the wrong place. In Charlotte, Iryna died not for who she was, but because she happened to share a train car with a man whose mind was broken, whose violence was unchecked. In both cases, the innocent pay the price. And that is why her story has sparked not only grief, but also outrage. Will her death ignite a larger reckoning about how America handles mental health, crime, and public safety? Or will it be quietly filed away as just another headline? Will the nation's cultural leaders speak up, or will silence signal selective outrage? And will policymakers look at her story and see the need for reform, or simply offer condolences and move on? For now, one truth is undeniable. A young woman who escaped war, who built a life in hope, who carried dreams of peace, was murdered in the very place she thought she could be safe. Her death should not be forgotten, and her story should not be filtered by politics or race. This is Sky High Viral. Stay with us as we continue to report, question, and amplify the voices that others overlook.